Mr. Mealing, come on down. Michael is the president of the Moon Society and the co-founder of Starbridge. And he is going to talk to us kind of a little bit about the past, present, and a flirt with the future of the Moon Society. So take it away, Michael.
Sure. Thank you, Michael. So I'm going to preface my talk a little bit with a conversation that I just had with an investor looking at the space sector. And I had to spend at least a good half hour explaining to them what was going on in the sector and how a lot of the things that he thought were science fiction were actually not only real, but the companies behind them were not only unicorns, they were becoming unicorns 10 and 20 times over. Where, as many of you in the industry have noticed, with between SPACs and SpaceX and the amount of money they can raise, a good example is Relativity Space. In the span of 6 months, raised $1.2 billion from private investors. There are companies out there such as Axiom, Umbra, Orbital Sidekick, SpaceX, Rocket Lab, Relativity, that are doing things and have customers and have products on the roadmap that are talking about making the things that we're talking about very real. And so the challenge that I think is currently facing most of us in this industry and most of us on this conference is that the space industry that existed 2 years ago almost has very little in common with the space industry that exists today, and the rate of change is accelerating. A lot of this has to do with people finally, I've been talking about this since about the year 2000 when I first came into the space sector. And even when I joined the Moon Society back in, I think was 2004. It all gets muddier the older you get, as I'm sure most of the people on this call are probably familiar with. The fact that we now have real companies focusing on real customers in real markets. When you do that, the finance industry responds. You get, for example, in SpaceX's most recent round back in February, that was supposed to be an inside sale, was 8 times oversubscribed and had large venture funds wiring $500 million before they'd even signed contracts. And the demand for that stock is so overwhelming because investors do see the promise of SpaceX and Starlink. So whenever we're talking about in our industry about I need access to capital, or access to capital will do this and such. If you are focused on the business of business and you have identified a large numbers of customers that are willing to pay you, the money flows. There is a desire across the entire financial sector to find risk-adjusted alpha being returns. And so that has created a tremendous amount of change in our industry. Even just in the past year, going into the pandemic, we thought that, oh my God, Rick Grimes is going to be, coming down the street on the horse surrounded by zombies. But what it's turned out is the space sector has had its greatest year ever in the entire history of the sector as a commercial sector. So the question that I'm posing when I look at the history of not just the Moon Society, but also our sector, is we spent easily 30 plus years imagining a future, and now we're on the cusp of actually being able to build it. And what does that mean to our institutions? The National Space Society has been doing some things lately with doing some reorganizations and changes to how it runs things and some of the programs. And I think the other institutions in our sector are probably in the process of doing the same thing. The Moon Society has been around almost as long as any of them, and we have wandered in the wilderness as well at times. And we got our start as a support organization and outreach organization that was tied to a commercial development. And commercial development of the moon and settlement has always been part of our organization. And now we are getting close to a time where the industry is ready for what we can do. And that means that it's probably time within our organization to do a bit of navel gazing. And so for everyone that's on the call, both our panelists and attendees, we're very interested in your input. What do you feel is, when it comes to lunar development and settlement, where are the gaps? What are the problems that need to be solved? Are they policy? Are they awareness? Are they capital formation? Are they formation of companies that can do certain things? And so that's where the society is looking for that kind of input to figure out what it is we want to do next. I do, through the Alliance for Space Development, along with all the other space advocacy organizations, do spend a fair amount of time talking with Congress. And I will testify to that. There are still large parts of Congress that believe that all the things that we're talking about, and this is a direct quote, are still at least 500 years in the future. And even when you show them things like Starship, they fundamentally believe, and then this is also a direct quote, that Elon Musk is a criminal because he is lying and defrauding the federal government, even though his rockets are flying these days on a bi-weekly basis. We still have a lot of work to do, but the industry is now backing up the work we have to do with accomplishments that are astounding people on almost a daily basis. And so that's where I think the future of, not just the Moon Society, every advocacy organization around the industry and around the world needs to prepare for a period of very rapid change. I'm going to get into a little of this tomorrow when I talk about a little bit about the Starship singularity. In one of the things that I do spend my time on, in addition to the Moon Society, is the Integrated Space Plan, which I'm sure some of you have seen. The new version is out. If you Google for Integrated Space Plan, you should be able to find it. It's the 2021 version. It was originally the 2020 version, and things kept changing so fast that we had to keep making changes to it. There are parts of it that are already out of date, and it's only been printed in the past 3 weeks. The amount of things that are happening, we need to prepare for that change, because people are going to come to us and say, what the hell is going on? How do I get involved? What can I do? And that is something that we, because we are nonpartisan, we're not beholden to a single company, and we actually understand the kind of future that we're all building, we all have a unique role to fill. And that is something that, whether it's Planetary Society, Mars Society, and especially some of James's work within the Mars Society, and even in the NSS, we're all feeling that need by the world to understand that what it means for the world that we've been trying to build for 30 plus years. What happens when that appears? And conferences like this are kind of a key part of that, because the more we can educate each other about what's going on, and then use that to educate the rest of society about what's going on. And I think the other thing that we need to do is make sure that it's becoming far more international. One of the things that I do is run rooms on Clubhouse, which is a new social media platform that's audio only. If you can imagine an app that shows you all of the available conference calls running around the world, and you just get to hop into whatever conference call you want and listen in and participate. The Indian subcontinent has come onto Clubhouse, and now every room that's related to entrepreneurship or space, at least a third of the people in the conversation are from India, Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, and they are all eager to participate. They want to know how they want to get involved. And so I think it's time that all of our organizations also become far more multinational. I ran into the person a few days ago who runs the National Space Society India chapter. So yes, the NSS that was formed as a US space advocacy organization now has chapters around the world. And that is a development that I think we all need to embrace, because they are eager to participate, they have a lot of energy, and they are ambitious. And so one of the things that I want to do is, that's kind of the end of some of my remarks. And I know I'm going to steal back my the 3 or 4 minutes at the beginning. I want questions. If anybody has any questions about, or comments about, what you think the society needs to be to fulfill the needs that you see in the industry, would love to hear comments or questions on the society itself and the larger industry. So I'm going to shut up and let you guys ask questions.
So there aren't any questions. I would like, if anybody has any comments, please post them. I want to echo something that Leonard David said just a few minutes ago, that there's a lot of stuff going on the moon. Everywhere he looks, everywhere he goes, it's the things we talked about early this morning: academic, civil, defense, and commercial. All of those communities are all pointing to the moon. I feel that the Moon Society has a role to play, a leadership role, an advocacy role, a science and development role, and a commercial role. So does anybody have any comments for Michael?
Michael, I do want to respond to something you just said that comes up on Clubhouse a lot. Yeah, every one of those, there's a lot of people that are looking to the moon and even beyond. We get the same conversations around Mars. I think one of the things that the society stands for is, and this is where we echo the statements in the Outer Space Treaty, is the moon is for everyone. Space is for everyone. It's not just for the United States.
Right.
It's not for NASA. It's not just for China or even Russia. The United Arab Emirates is the only country that has as a national goal the establishment of an Emirati city on Mars. There are other governments, there are non-government organizations that have aspirations for doing things in space and on the moon. This is not a US program. This is not a program for superpowers. This is a program, this is a mission for all of humanity. And if you want to go, we can figure out how to make that happen.
This isn't a plug for my book, because it's a terrible book. Don't buy this book. But our title is Opening. So that's been the philosophy from most space advocates that I know.
I got one question. Should the Moon Society take over the moon track at the ISDC? We've done that in the past. I think that's just a conversation between NSS and Moon Society. you know, it's one of those things during the pandemic. I think everybody was making everything up as they went along.
Yeah.
Sure, you know, those are kind of some of the blocking and tackling things between the NSS, Moon Society. I do have to say that the Alliance for Space Development is a very unique organization, because that is where NSS leadership, Moon Society leadership, Planetary Society leadership, we all get together, and it's very collegial. It's like, okay, you do your thing, we'll do our thing. Where we have something in common, we will do it together, and we're happy to do it together. And we actually develop policy together. And it's something that as the pie grows, it's quickly becoming nearly impossible for any one organization to do anything, to do everything. It already is impossible for everyone to do that. So yeah, you're going to start seeing more and more partnerships between all of these organizations as the boundaries between what we all do get really, really muddy.
All right. Thank you very much, Michael. We'll hear more from you tomorrow.